Hey, how's it going everyone? Mick here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about graphics cards. We're going to be talking about the outrageous pricing they are going for online at the moment, the absolute lack of availability for them, and how I might actually have a pretty decent way of how you can get your hands on a brand new graphics card for a relatively competitive, close to retail recommended price. So if you're interested in that, make sure you keep watching this video, be subscribed, give it a like, and let's get straight into it. Right, so I thought I'd kick things off by just showing you guys the current pricing of various GPUs that are currently going on eBay at the moment. Now, obviously, you've got to keep in mind that there are eBay fees that sellers are probably taking into account when they're selling these. But even with that taken into account, if you search for these prices, make sure you click on the Advanced tab and actually click on the sold listing so you know what they're actually selling for, rather than what cards are potentially just sitting on, rather than just seeing what cards have been just bunged on eBay for absolutely exorbitant prices. But as you can see here, like a 6700 XT is going in the region of £600 to £750 depending on the SKU. Obviously your Merc 319 and your Sapphire Nitro Plus are going to be your right at the top end cards, with your reference designs down towards the cheaper models. But the reference design is like a £480 card. It really shouldn't cost over £600 for it. It is a massive markup, and it's not even the worst markup when we talk about GPUs at the moment. If we look at the 3060 is heavily inflated. I think it's like a £350 card, if that, and they're going for well above £600. Some of them are going above £700. You can see the 3060 Ti is going for above £900. That's way more than the retail price value of a 3070. And speaking of the 3070s, I mean, the 3070s are going for £1,000 upwards at the moment. It's absolutely ridiculous. In between 900 and 1100 quid at the moment. I'm really lucky. I've actually got a 3070. I've got an MSI Supreme card that I got from Novatech. And to put that into perspective, I thought it was an expensive card at £675. But then again, it is like right at the top end of what, in terms of the 3070 SKUs that are available. And I think that's why I was able to buy it in the first place. This is the current issues that we're currently facing at the moment. And if you're looking at all these prices, you can get full systems for less than what some of these prices are, which brings me to what I want to talk about today in terms of how I think people could go in order to get some GPUs at a relatively decent price. Just so I could actually show it in terms of content, I actually I purchased a custom build from a system integrator. I did mine through PC Specialist, and the reason why I did it through PC Specialist is because they've got a real high level of customization that they allow customers to do, and the goal was to see how much I could downgrade in terms of everything else except for the GPU. There are other system integrators that give you customization, but they're very picky in terms of what CPU and GPU combo you can have. So as you can see here, I'll put an image on the screen now of the build that I did and how much I paid for it. So in terms of the case, we've gone for the Lian Li Lancool 215 gaming case. That is the case that has the two massive RGB fans at the front. And again, I could have really cheaped out and saved another 60 quid just from that, by going with one of their really cheapo cases. But if I want to sell some of the components to recoup some of the cost for the total build, so that I'm only paying for the GPU, it's going to be easier to do that with desirable components. And this case, it's a Lian Li case. It's a well-built case. It's a nice looking case. It's got good airflow, and it's relatively well priced. So you're going to be able to get most of your money back for the case, especially if it's in pristine condition, and brand new when you get it from your build. In terms of the processor, we've gone for an i3 10100F. Again, I could have gone down to a Celeron if I wanted to, but again, you got to think about the demand for components. And the 10100F is a fantastic budget gaming CPU. 4-core, 8-thread, not overclockable. Doesn't have the graphics, which makes it a cheaper part as well. And yeah, it's a great budget gaming CPU. So yeah, it's going to have a lot more it's going to be a lot more desirable to potential buyers than, say, a Pentium bloody Celeron GPU or whatever. In terms of the motherboard, we've gone for an Asus TUF Gaming B460 Plus full ATX board. The reason I did this is, one, I didn't want to cheap out on a H10 motherboard because, again, how desirable is that motherboard going to be? This is a nice looking motherboard that has an I/O shield, so it's aesthetically pleasing, whilst not being a really expensive board. Again, it doesn't have Wi-Fi or anything like that built in, but for the price, it's worth getting over a real budget board. And it's a good pairing for the CPU because you can't overclock the CPU, and the CPU only supports a certain speed of memory anyway. And speaking of memory, absolutely bottomed out at 4 gigs DDR4 2400 megahertz. And that's because it's much cheaper to buy your own RAM kit and install that yourself if you did want to do that. It's not worth configuring a 16 gig kit on the PC Specialist website because at least for me, it came out considerably more when speccing out RGB Pro memory from Corsair. In terms of graphics card, again, 12 gig Radeon 6700 XT, and this was available and in stock when I ordered, so one of those cards is allocated to me. If it's not in stock, it will have a pre-order in brackets on the right hand side of the card, so you can still order and you'll be placed in a queue, but this card was actually available, and this build is actually taking place on the 9th, so it is a little bit of a wait, but that's pretty normal in terms of PC Specialist wait times. 128 gigs of SSD storage, 2.5-inch SSD. This is probably just going to be like an ADATA or Kingston cheapo SSD. Again, you'll probably make use of it, be able to install a game on it. You can't even install Warzone on that SSD, that's quite funny. Power supply, again, this was one that I thought there's no point cheaping out on it, because if you got like a really cheap 350 watt power supply, that'll be quite hard to sell on. But a 650 CV series power supply from Corsair is about a £50 power supply. If you buy it from just like a retailer, and it's a good power supply, and power supplies are quite high in demand components anyway, and they're not always in stock, so you'll probably not have a problem shifting that if you want to. And then in terms of the CPU cooler, just keep the stock one. I'm actually going to put on that Vitro cooler on it just because I want to see what the full build would look like with that cooler on it. Just for lols. And then in terms of the all that other stuff like thermal paste, none of that costs anything, and the sound card and the network card, that's like just what comes on the motherboard. It's nothing extra. And then on the operating system, don't get one included because you can install Windows on a USB that you can make yourself by using the Microsoft Windows tool, the Windows creation tool, and you don't even have to activate the key on it, so you can actually install Windows for free. And if you wanted to get a key later on down the line, you can like spend £8 or a tenner to get a key online from like G2A or King Gwyn or SCD keys, one of those ones. And that took off another £60 from the build. It's mad how you can make these sorts of savings. So again, if I was to really cheap out on absolutely everything, I would have probably saved another £100. But with all of this, the build came to about £850, give or take. If you sell the majority of the parts, you'll be able to recoup a lot of that money back, and then basically just pay for the graphics card. And I decided as well to do a PC part picker, and everything is exactly the same on this, apart from a different brand memory and probably a different brand SSD. I had to put in a custom price for the GPU and the power supply, because obviously you can't get the pricing for the GPU because there's none available. And for some reason, I couldn't get any of the retailers to grab the price for the CV 650, although it is a £50 power supply. And again, for the graphics card 479, that's pretty much bang on the retail for a reference card, remember. So if I get anything other than a reference card in this build, I'm already winning. But as you can see here, it's come to £876.85. That's more than what the PC Specialist build costs for the exact same thing. So you can see there, like, yeah, it's in that sense, it's hard to justify just building your own PC, especially when graphics cards are so hard to get hold of, and you're probably going to be paying a premium for them. So if you say, for example, you add an extra £200 onto the GPU and pay the scalpers price, you're already at over £1,000 at that point. It's not worth it. You're at nearly 1,100 quid. It's not worth it. You might as well just get a pre-build and spec the system how you want to spec it. I know, especially as like a PC hardware enthusiast as well, someone that loves building PCs, I'm not someone that's ever recommended to go out and buy a pre-build, but it's the only way really to get good value in terms of picking up a system. And again, even if you're only after a GPU, if you're happy to go through the hassle of selling the other components, you'll pretty much pay retail for what the graphics card is worth. You might pay a little tiny bit more, but you won't be paying scalpers sort of pricing. That's for sure. Especially if you choose the right components that are pretty desirable. So you only lose a few quid here and there on selling it on. But yeah. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. I really hope this has helped at least one person in their quest of getting a hold of a GPU. I know it's frustrating, I know it's tough. There's so many different factors that are playing into this issue at the moment. I don't see it getting any better for a lot of this year. I don't see any improvements coming really in terms of availability and pricing until at least probably Q3 of 2021. And obviously until, again, even when supply comes back, you've then got the issue of higher demand due to scalpers in general and due to cryptocurrency mining as well. So there's always going to be an increased demand at the moment as well. But yeah, even if this slightly helps, or at least it gets you to think about how you're going to go about getting a hold of a GPU, if you really want a GPU that badly, you'll go through the extra bit of work of getting a pre-build and then selling the other components off. But yeah, I hope this has been helpful. I've been Mick from All About Tech. Make sure you give this video a like, give it a share, subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications so you don't miss any future videos. I will be doing another video when this PC Specialist build arrives, and I'll be doing an unboxing and finding out what GPU they put in it, because I generally don't know. All I know is that it's going to be an XFX card. That's all I know. There's nothing else I know in terms of which card it will be, and I'm not going to ask them closer to the time because I want it to be a bit of a surprise. Because either way, I'm paying around retail for it anyway. So whether it's a reference design or whether it's a high-end Merc 319 card, it really doesn't matter to me. But yeah, I've been Mick from All About Tech. Subscribe, and I'll catch you guys out in the next one.